The frozen night on Kepri 4 was brutal. The storms of this distant colony world screamed across the plains, carrying shards of ice like knives. Inside a small dome-shaped research habitat, one human kept the cold at bay with stubborn patience and old machines. Aaron Cole was his name. He was not a soldier, not a diplomat, not anyone who carried fame in his pocket. He was an engineer, sent far away from Earth to keep a lonely outpost alive. The dome was filled with hums and clicks of heating systems, patched walls, and repair kits scattered across a workbench. Most nights, Aaron worked until his eyes ached. He fixed broken heat pipes, checked fuel levels, and wrote notes to himself about the next day. The silence was his closest companion, except for the shrieking wind outside. But that night, silence broke. The alert light flashed red above the northern hatch. The sensor that never lied told him something, or someone had forced their way through the storm. Aaron hesitated for only a breath. Then he pulled on his insulated gloves, lifted the heavy locking bar, and opened the hatch. The storm tried to claw its way inside, but what fell into his arms shocked him more than the cold wind. It was a tall figure wrapped in a torn silver cloak. The body was trembling, weak, almost too light. As Aaron pulled her inside, the hood fell back. He froze. Her skin shimmered faintly, golden under the dim light. Her face was narrow, elegant and fox-like, with eyes far larger than a human's. They glowed faintly as if they were built to collect starlight. She tried to speak, but only managed a whisper. "Please, close. Need warmth." Aaron didn't think twice. He slammed the hatch shut, shoved the locking bar into place, and carried her toward his cot by the heater. Her hands felt like ice blocks against his jacket. He grabbed blankets, every spare one he had, and layered them over her. "Easy," he said, his voice calm, slow. "You're safe. You're inside now." She shivered so hard the cot rattled. Aaron tucked a hot pack beneath the blankets and checked her breathing. Too fast, shallow but steadying. He brewed a quick broth and helped her sip it slowly. Hours passed before her trembling calmed. Her eyes, deep and strange, finally focused on him. "You are human?" "Yes," Aaron answered. "And you?" "I am Sareth," she whispered. "Princess of Mir Aaron." Her voice cracked as if the word princess carried too much weight to bear. Aaron blinked. A princess here? On this frozen wasteland? But he did not ask. Questions could wait. Survival could not. "You're freezing," he said. "Stay under those blankets." "You'll recover." She nodded, weak but grateful. After a pause, she whispered again. "My people. We borrow warmth. Not shame. Not sin, survival. May I—" She shifted closer, careful, slow, until her shoulder touched his jacket sleeve. She flinched at the sudden heat, then relaxed with a soft sigh. "Your warmth. Clean, steady like a sun." Aaron said nothing. He only adjusted the blanket higher. Her culture might treat warmth as custom, as bond. For him it was simple. No one froze to death on his watch. Outside, the storm clawed at the dome. Inside, the princess breathed evenly, finally slipping into exhausted sleep. Aaron tried to sleep in his chair, boots still on. But just before dawn, he heard her murmur, half dreaming, "Aaron, if I sleep, will your warmth stay?" He answered softly, "It'll stay." At sunrise, the storm thinned. Light leaked through the frosted window. Aaron checked his terminal and his stomach tightened. A signal blinked in the corner of the screen, an encoded packet, urgent. He opened it. Words appeared. Royal Distress Beacon. Priority. Crown of the Mir Aaron. Retrieve Princess Sareth. Aaron looked at the cot. She was sitting upright now, more color in her face. A princess. He had given his blankets to someone whose name could sway star systems. "Your Highness?" Aaron asked carefully. Sareth winced. "Please, not while wrapped like laundry." "Sareth is fine." "Sareth, then. Your people are searching for you." Her gaze lifted to the sealed window. "They will come, with ceremony, and questions. But not all who follow are friends. My escort gone. The storm, or hunters." "Hunters?" Aaron asked. "Not for meat, for power. A cold princess is a perfect hostage." Aaron's jaw tightened. "Not while you're in my dome." She studied him, her eyes sharp despite her exhaustion. "Your house is small, human, but warm. And strong." They shared a meal, ration packs and reboiled broth. She ate slowly, savoring warmth more than taste. They spoke quietly. She told him of her people's tradition, never to sleep alone during cold seasons. To share heat was to share trust, not scandal. He told her of Earth winters, of mountain cabins, of grandmothers who knitted scarves like shields. By afternoon, the sky cleared. But the peace did not last. A shadow passed over the dome, sleek, angular, wrong. Not a royal cutter. Aaron's instincts screamed. He killed the interior lights and pulled Sareth to the floor. The shadow circled again, slow and hungry. Hunters, she whispered, eyes wide. Aaron's mind raced. Then we need a plan. He pointed to the heat exchanger he had repaired the night before. I can make it glow like a bonfire on sensors. We'll give them something bright to stare at. Then we slip out. Slip out where? She asked. Down the ridge. Lava tubes. Natural insulation. Safer than this tin can. She stared at him a long moment, then nodded. Lead, small son. Aaron began to rig his trap. He wired spare heat cables into the exchanger, cranked its output, and placed heated gel packs as decoys. On his screen, false heat signatures bloomed, fat, glowing targets. Outside, the huntercraft circled again, beams sweeping. They paused right over the fake bonfire. Bite the bait, Aaron muttered. They did. The craft drifted, scanning the decoys. Aaron grabbed his pack, slung a coil of heat cable over his shoulder, and motioned. Time to move. Sareth wrapped her cloak tighter. She slid one last time into his spare quilt, just for a breath, absorbing enough warmth to steady her. Then she rose. Her eyes glowed with new fire. You kept me alive, she said quietly. I will not forget, Aaron nodded once. Then let's make sure you get the chance to remember. They stepped out into the bitter light of day. Behind them, the hunters circled the wrong heat. Ahead, the ridge waited, sharp and cold. The storm season was far from over. The real test had just begun. The air outside was sharp as broken glass. Aaron Cole pulled his hood tighter and squinted across the frozen ridge. The sun was pale, the kind of weak light that gave no warmth, only longer shadows. Behind them, his small dome stood silent against the storm-carved land. He had lived there for months, fixing machines and drinking bitter coffee. Now he was walking away with an alien princess under his protection. Sareth walked beside him, her silver cloak dragging across the snow. Her steps were uneven, but her eyes remained steady, scanning the sky. Every so often she tilted her head in a way that reminded Aaron of a wild creature listening for predators. They will circle back, she said softly. Hunters do not give up easy prey. Then we'll stop being easy, Aaron replied. He carried a small pack of supplies, thermal flares, food packs, and the portable decoys he had rigged. He had learned on Earth's mountains that survival was not about strength, but about planning one step ahead of the cold. The ridge sloped downward toward dark holes in the land. Lava tubes carved ages ago by fire that no longer burned. Aaron knew they were deep, dry, and insulated from the freezing winds. Perfect places to hide. By the time they reached the first tube entrance, the hum of distant engines returned. Aaron pulled Sareth close to the shadow of a rock. Above, a huntercraft drifted like a shark. Its fans cut through the silence. The sensors on its belly glowed faintly red. Sareth whispered, They search for the warmth of bodies. Aaron nodded. Then we'll confuse their eyes. He pulled out two of his decoys, small heated packs wrapped in reflective foil. He tossed one far to the left, another far to the right. On his handheld screen, the false signals glowed brightly. The hunter's beam locked onto the first decoy. It drifted toward it, lowering as if it had spotted prey. The second decoy pulled it further off track. Aaron grabbed Sareth's arm and motioned toward the lava tube. Now they ran. Their boots cracked the ice, sending sharp echoes into the tube's mouth. Inside, darkness swallowed them, broken only by the faint light of Aaron's collar lamp. The rock walls curved smooth, black and red, like frozen waves of fire. The air was warmer inside, though stale. Sareth leaned against the wall, catching her breath. She pulled her cloak tighter and whispered, This place remembers heat. Aaron smiled faintly. Yeah, volcanic insulation, nature's heater. They walked deeper. The sounds of the hunter faded, replaced by the slow drip of water. Aaron spread out an emergency blanket and motioned for her to sit. He gave her a heated canteen. She wrapped her hands around it, not drinking yet, just holding it. You always carry warmth, she said quietly. Humans hate losing people to cold, Aaron said. So we carry more heat than we need. Her lips curved in a small, tired smile. That is a kind habit. They sat in silence, sharing the simple comfort of heat. But Aaron's mind stayed alert. The hunters were clever, and clever hunters did not quit. He pulled a small device from his pack, a prototype heat shiver he had built for repair drills. It projected false warmth onto thermal scans. He placed it at the tube entrance, linking it to the decoys outside. On his screen, the illusion was complete. 3 heat sources wandering away, leaving the tube cold. Sareth watched carefully. You play with warmth like a game of stones, moving pieces until the enemy does not know which is real. It's not a game, Aaron said. It's survival. Humans build tricks because we're not the strongest, but we're stubborn. That's our weapon. She nodded slowly. Stubbornness is a good crown. Hours passed in uneasy peace. They ate ration packs and spoke quietly. Aaron told her about Earth winters, where neighbors brought soup to each other's houses. She told him of her desert world, where nights froze so quickly that whole families slept pressed together in circles, sharing warmth like a song. When silence returned, Aaron adjusted his radio. Static filled the tube, then cleared into a sharp voice. Royal Cutter to bearer of the beacon. Identify. Sareth leaned forward, eyes widening. That is mine. She spoke clearly into the mic, her voice carrying authority. This is Princess Sareth of the Mere Aaron. I am alive. 2 souls in lava tube sector, Tharsis Beta. Hostiles in the air. There was a pause. Then a reply, acknowledged. We are inbound. Hold position. Relief softened her features, but Aaron's stomach tightened. Inbound means they're coming here. If the hunters see them, then you must make them see something else first, Sareth said. Aaron nodded grimly. He adjusted the heat shiver, killed the decoys, and lit a thermal flare at the tube mouth. Heat roared into the cold air, painting a massive bright target on every sensor in the sky. Above, 2 shadows turned sharply, one sleek and controlled, the other twitchy and hungry. The sleek craft dove first, the Royal Cutter. It dropped a capsule shielded with heated air and extended a rope ladder. Aaron turned to Sareth. Go, now! She looked at him, searching. Then she touched his sleeve, firm and steady. You stand in my story now. I will stand in yours. She climbed the ladder. At that exact moment, the hunters swooped, fans screaming. Aaron threw 2 more flares into the snow. The sudden heat signatures exploded across the sensors. The hunters blinked, confused, hesitated. 1 second too long. The cutter fired a non-lethal pulse. The hunters spun away like leaves in a gale, crashing down on the far ridge. The capsule reeled Sareth inside, safe. 2 armored Mere Guardians dropped down beside Aaron. Their suits glowed faintly, their movements precise. One spoke through an amplifier. Human Aaron, by royal command, you are under our protection. Come. Aaron grabbed his pack and climbed. The cutter's interior was warm, lit with golden panels. Sareth was there, wrapped in a thermal mantle, her posture regal once more. She introduced him to her steward, her pilot, and her advisor. Each bowed to him. He bowed back, awkward but sincere. The pilot turned. Course set for orbit. Sareth raised her chin. Inform the council the princess is recovered. And tell them also, the hunters wore government colors. The old advisor frowned deeply. That is grave news. Aaron looked at Sareth. Her eyes glowed with a new fire, stronger than before. The night wanted to take me, she said softly. But a human kept the warmth. I will not forget. The cutter rose through the storm. Below, the hunters lay broken. Above, the stars waited. For Aaron, the mission had been simple. Keep one life warm. But now he understood something larger. Humans were not just fixers of machines. They were keepers of warmth, even when the universe tried to freeze everything. And somewhere deep in that truth, HFY burned brighter than any sun. The Royal Cutter docked with the Mere capital cruiser in orbit. The moment Aaron stepped onto the polished floor of the vast ship, he felt as if he had walked into a palace built from light and warmth itself. The walls glowed faintly, holding a gentle heat that felt alive, as if the ship was breathing kindness into its halls. Sareth walked beside him, no longer the trembling figure wrapped in torn cloth, but the princess she truly was. Her silver cloak had been replaced with a mantle woven with threads that shimmered like sunlight on desert stone. Her back was straight, her voice calm, and her every step carried the authority of a leader who had survived both storm and betrayal. But she did not walk alone. She glanced often at Aaron, her expression softening whenever their eyes met. To her, he was not only a rescuer. He was proof that survival and honor could be carried by a single human in a lonely dome. The cruiser's hallways led to a wide balcony that overlooked a great indoor garden. Strange, heat-loving trees stretched toward the ceiling, their leaves glowing faintly like lanterns. Around them stood the Mir Royal Council, a circle of advisors dressed in robes lined with mica dust that sparkled like frost in starlight. The chief counselor, Alaron, stepped forward. His voice was calm but sharp. "Princess Sareth, the council rejoices at your safe return." Sareth bowed slightly. "Rejoice not for me alone," she said clearly. "Rejoice for the one who kept me alive, Aaron Cole, human engineer." The council turned their eyes toward him. Aaron felt every gaze like a weight, but he stood steady. He had not chosen this honor, but he would not dishonor it by shrinking away. Alaron studied him with interest. "Human Aaron, you carried our princess through the storm. You defied hunters. You built tricks of heat to confuse enemies. For this you have our gratitude. But we also have questions. The princess reports that the hunters bore the colors of our own government. Did you see this?" Aaron shook his head. "I saw their craft. Sleek, fast, too well built to belong to simple raiders. I trusted Sareth's word. That was enough." Sareth stepped forward, her eyes glowing fiercely. It was not imagination. Their movements, their codes, their discipline. It was the style of insiders. Someone within our borders betrayed us. Someone thought that a princess could be taken, and that cold would silence her forever. The council whispered among themselves. Some faces showed fear, others anger, but most showed deep thought. Alaron raised his hand for silence. "Then we will investigate. The warmth of trust cannot live beside such shadows." He turned again to Aaron. "Your devices, these decoys of heat that misled hunters, can you teach us?" Aaron nodded. "They're simple. Any human mechanic could make them. Wirefoil gel packs. But what matters isn't the parts. It's the stubbornness to keep trying until the trick works. Humans aren't the strongest. We survive because we refuse to stop." Murmurs moved again around the council. To them the idea was both strange and admirable. Strength not from power, but from stubborn care. Sareth lifted her voice. "I ask the council for more than gratitude. I ask for a covenant." The advisors leaned forward. She spread her hands. "My people say in the deep night share your fire. When the sun returns, share your bread. This is how we survived our deserts and our storms. Now I ask that we extend this to humans. If a human is cold in Mir territory, we will treat them as kin. If a Mir is cold in human territory, humans will do the same. Not as charity. As covenant." The chamber went silent. Mir believed in promises that could be touched. This one had weight. Aaron looked around, then spoke simply. "On Earth we already have this in our bones. We bring soup to neighbors. We keep blankets ready for strangers. Sareth's promise is what we already try to live. Making it law just makes it stronger." Alaron's eyes softened. "A covenant of warmth," he said slowly. "Practical, elegant, true." He gestured to the scribe. "Draft it." And so the promise was written. Within hours, the first lines were recorded. "When the night is cold, there are no strangers." In the days that followed, Aaron walked the halls of the cruiser with Sareth. She showed him the Warmth Guild, a group of Mir engineers, medics, and architects who designed ways to keep their people alive in storms. The guild studied his decoy schematics with joy, and in return they taught him about heat nets spread across cities, ceramic cups that glowed when someone nearby was too cold, and blankets woven with memory threads that stored warmth like a battery. "You think like us," the guild leader said, "but you also think differently. You see warmth as battle. We see it as song. Together we will make something stronger." Sareth smiled at Aaron. "This is what happens when stubbornness meets tradition." Meanwhile, the council uncovered the truth. The hunters had been funded by a faction that profited when borders closed and trade froze. They wanted fear. They wanted isolation. They wanted Sareth gone so they could argue that humans were untrustworthy and alliances dangerous. But their plan had failed, because one human in a lonely dome had chosen not to let a stranger freeze. The council acted swiftly. The traitors were removed. The truth was spoken publicly. Sareth herself addressed the assembly. "The night will come again," she said, standing tall in her mantle. "When it does, we do not scatter to separate fires. We sit together. That is how we survive desert, storms, and space. That is how we will survive what comes next." Her words burned brighter than any flare. The assembly bowed their heads in respect. That evening, Sareth invited Aaron to a ceremony not for politics but for gratitude. The hall was filled with music that sounded like sunlight striking snow. Mere citizens gathered, carrying blankets and loaves of bread baked with stored heat. Sareth spoke first. When I was lost in the storm, I slid into the blankets of a human and whispered that I needed warmth. He gave it without hesitation, without question. He saw no princess, only a life in danger. That is the warmth we honor tonight. She draped a ceremonial quilt over Aaron's shoulders. It was heavy but soft, glowing faintly with stored heat. "This is not a crown," she said. "It is a promise. You are family now." The guild placed a loaf of heat-baked bread in his hands. He broke it and passed pieces to those nearby, as was the custom. Laughter and joy filled the hall. The warmth rose another degree, not from vents but from people. Aaron stood quietly, overwhelmed. He had not sought honor. He had only sought to keep someone alive. But sometimes the smallest act was the brightest torch. Later, walking through a quiet corridor, Sareth looked at him thoughtfully. "You are going to say your phrase again, aren't you?" "What phrase?" Aaron asked. "We fix things, then we tell each other how," she said, smiling. He laughed. "Guilty, that's humanity in a nutshell." "Good," she said softly. "Tell it to the guild until they dream it. And let me tell your people our phrase. In the deep night, share your fire. When the sun returns, share your bread. Let our promises learn each other's steps." "They already are," Aaron said. They paused at a window. Outside, space stretched cold and endless. Between that indifference and their two small lives, a promise glowed steady as a sun. Aaron could have returned to his dome. Instead, he stayed a while, helping the guild install heat nets in frontier towns. He learned to weave memory blankets. He taught children how to build decoys from scraps. And everywhere he went, he carried the covenant of warmth like a torch, telling the story of how one storm could forge a bond between worlds. Sareth often joined him, not as a princess above, but as a partner beside. She never forgot the night she had whispered for warmth and received more than heat. She had received trust. In the end, the story spread across stars. Humans repeated it on Earth. The Mir repeated it in their deserts. It became a proverb in both tongues. Once, in a night that wanted to take a life, a human kept the heat. When the sun returned, they shared the bread HFY always.